Hi guys, welcome back to the NEARSHORING Channel, where you get the most updated news on nearshoring. Today we have the pleasure of having Brad with us. He is the Chief Technology Officer and Managing Partner at one of the US's top IT firms. Hi Brad, thank you for joining us today on the NEARSHORING Channel. I'm sure this video will be of great help to many out there. Now, the article on the Pew Research states, the abrupt closure of many offices and workplaces this past spring ushered in a new era of remote work for millions of employed Americans. Of course, we know the pandemic has changed the way Americans work. How has the pandemic affected the workers in your company?
We were set up to where we could migrate and work in a remote capacity fairly quickly with the type of industry that we do. For our company to adopt to a remote workforce was something that was quite seamless for us.
When did you guys realize that nearshoring was an option, and why?
We discovered that nearshoring was an option when we were able to adapt so quickly to a remote work environment. We had essentially closed our office completely to normal day-to-day operations, and we were able to adapt to a strictly remote capacity. Once we realized that we didn't actually have to be inside of our office building, we no longer were locked to our geography to have local workers as well. We've got workers outside of the city of Greenville, as well as now nearshoring outside of the country as well.
Now, Brad, what are the steps to follow if you're considering nearshoring as an option for your company?
So if you're considering going nearshoring, if your company is already set up to where you can work in a remote capacity or have remote employees, you're basically set up for nearshoring already. Okay,
now the big question, why nearshore versus maybe offshoring?
One of the big things with nearshoring is the fact that all of the workers are working in the same time zone that we're in. So they're working the day shift just like we're working the day shift, as opposed to getting someone on the opposite side of the globe where they're going to be a third shift employee, not going to get the best of the best. So nearshoring enabled us to keep people working first shift when our staff is in, when they're in, and it's meshed very, very well.
Perfect. Now, how has your experience been with your remote staff? How have they coped with all this remote working?
They've actually coped with it pretty well. We've had a few staff members that prefer to come back into the office now that we have our office open, although most of them have decided to stay in more of a remote capacity. It allows a little bit more flexibility, and we do things more via cameras now than we did before, and we've been able to kind of build our culture back in more of a remote capacity, and it doesn't really matter geography related where they are anymore.
Right. Okay, now let's look at a different article. The US News states, there are various reasons we think it's important for people to be in the office. Client interactions, training, building team culture, and it's hard to build a culture when you're not in the office. What do you make of this statement?
I would say that was true probably 2 years ago. But one of the things that we've noticed is again, a lot of the video meetings, it really has enabled us to create more of a culture in a remote capacity. Our people tend to just hop on video calls now and ask questions, chat. The water cooler conversations even are happening now via cameras where they weren't really happening before. So I think a lot of that culture is back in a remote capacity, and we're not skipping a beat with that.
Let's talk more about, like, you know, the ramp up. Let's see. How does the candidate selection work?
The candidate selection for us, we've really been able to provide a job description and the skills that we're looking for an employee. And we're typically presented with multiple candidates. We get a video recording of a first round interview. We're able to narrow that down to who we would like to speak to again. We set up another video interview with them, and in the event that they're going to work for us, then they're able to start fairly quickly, and just like they would as if they were a regular employee but working remote, works exactly the same.
How fast was your development team assembled? So you get the candidates, you search through them, you see what works, what doesn't, you get back and forth. How long is that back and forth?
It typically goes very quickly. There seems to be a large pool of candidates that are out there. So each time that we do need an additional resource, we typically have first round video interviews available to us fairly quickly. And about as quickly as we can make decisions on who to go with is when we've got candidates available.
So you really haven't had that, like, notice that difference between having them remote and having them there, because it's about the same.
It really is about the same. If anything, might even be a little bit quicker remote.
When it comes to the contract, how flexible is the contract with your nearshoring partner?
The contract's been very flexible. If the needs of the job change, they've worked with us in that regard. Haven't had really any issues. Very flexible, very easy to deal with. Overall, been very pleased.
And I think you touched on this before, but how do you guys communicate with your remote staff?
We communicate with our remote staff a number of different ways. Of course, traditional email and chat, like we do with a lot of our regular employees, as well as having weekly video calls as well, just like we're having with our regular employees as well. Our employees that are actually in the office today, when we do end up doing entire team meetings or anything, they're on their cameras just as though they were in a remote area, but they're doing it from the office. So it really is interacting exactly the same as though we do with our regular full-time employees.
Perfect. Now, one last thing. What can be expected with nearshoring and having remote staff? Good, bad? What's your opinion on this? Like, what can they expect when having remote staff?
I guess one of the things that kind of caught me off guard was just how eager everyone is with our nearshoring opportunity to want to get a job done well, how to impress the employer. It's rare that we find that quality in an employee really anywhere, but it's something that we've seen with just about all of our nearshoring employees that we've had. So very, very impressed in that regard, and like to see hungry, eager employees.
Well, Brad, thank you for taking your time to sit with us and share your experience with nearshoring. Once again, thank you for taking time out of your day to help us educate our audience on nearshoring and remote staffing. I hope this video was helpful and gives you an idea of what to expect when nearshoring. Until the next time.